Somebody asked me to make a video that discusses leadership skills as it relates to being a dungeon master. And I did that. And then they said, well, you talked about the skills, but you didn't actually talk about how to get better at them if you have a hard time with them. So I put some thought into this because I found this very challenging. And what I've come up with is this concept that for me, there are certain things that work really well. I hope this can help you at home. There are things that I do when I'm running games that are natural to me because of my personality. And I feel like it's hard to necessarily explain to you what I do without seeming presumptuous. So what I did is I thought about what has made me successful as a GM in my approach in terms of how I work with players. And then I thought about, well, I was a classroom teacher for 15 years. What approach did I have that was consistent throughout that whole time that generally made me pretty effective? So I was good at my job. So I came to this conclusion that there's one commonality, and that commonality is called the beginner's mindset. And I think for you at home, whether you're running a game for your family or friends, this can actually be very beneficial. So I wanted to talk about what that is so that you can implement these skills or this approach to hopefully have a better experience. Now, the biggest problem I've seen with GMs, and I've worked with a lot of GMs, many of them are wonderful human beings. They do a great job of running games, and everybody in this community seems to be really positive, but several encounter challenges. And the ones that encounter challenges actually don't have this mindset. And here's what this is. So whenever I would run a class or whenever I run a Dungeons and Dragons game, I try to put myself in the position of this is my first time playing. I've never done this before. And if I'm a player, my body of knowledge is effectively zero, that I have no level of preconception about how this game works or how the experience works. I've found that it's very effective teaching in a classroom when I was teaching subjects like economics, history, finance. It's also really effective when running Dungeons and Dragons games because it allows me to discover as the GM the joys that the players are having as they learn this process. So here are some key ideas to approach this with. So curiosity is one of them. I'm being curious about the process, curious about their character, curious about what questions do you have? How can I help you? How does that item work, or how does your ability work? Even if you know because you've done it so many times, when you have that curiosity, you share that joy with the player, and that actually creates a really positive dynamic. Other things the second thing on the list is being open in terms of the player's perspective. Even though as a GM, I've done this a lot, or even though as a teacher, I had taught the same material over and over again, when I receive suggestions or ideas that even though I know that they might not turn out great, being open to seeing how they play out. Because for that individual, for that person, for your players at your table, that might be the first time they've ever tried something like that. And so I found that having that openness to say, yeah, let's see how that plays out, or that's an interesting choice. What can we do to make that happen? Let's explore that together. It creates a sense of engagement and positivity that I think a lot of people, and I think that you want at your table at home, because it creates a long-lasting positive experience for the players and keeps them coming back. And here's one. I struggled with this when I was younger. It's a battle I still fight. The idea of being humble or having humility. It's very easy from my point of view as a GM, the game master, to feel a sense of confidence or overconfidence because I know the rules. I know how the game plays out. I've done this so many times. Whenever I've approached a game that way, it doesn't really work very well. And by having a beginner's mindset and being humble about the experience, realizing that I'm here to help people, I'm here to learn with them and help them grow, because it's really about the players. So by remaining humble and trying to say, okay, I think I know this. I think I know how this works. What do you think about this? Putting myself on the level of the players, I found that to be really beneficial in my time as both a classroom teacher and as a GM. And what it does is this whole thing, it creates an experience for people they want to come back to, that they can enjoy, that's accessible. And I've noticed when I've done this the opposite way, or sometimes I've seen other GMs do it the opposite way, it offers a less open experience, a less welcoming experience. So other things, flexibility. When you have this beginner's mindset, being flexible allows you to support the other ideas within this list, within this approach. Because when you're looking at different ways to do things that players might discover, or when I was teaching, different ways to learn things that maybe I hadn't anticipated, it creates an experience where the person who's learning it is discovering it for the first time and able to enjoy it. And me, as a facilitator, and you, I hope, at home, are able to enjoy it with them as well. Another thing that's really important for beginners and the beginner's mindset, it's okay to embrace mistakes. And I try to exemplify that in both my teaching, my running of games when I run sessions, and in my business leadership positions. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to acknowledge mistakes and say, hey, well, how do we do that better? Or whoops, that didn't go exactly as I planned. That is a great way to demonstrate humility. And I know that when I was first starting as a game master, I felt like I had to be perfect, and I felt like I had to do everything the right way every single time. And actually, it's the opposite, because the people at your table, or at least the people at my table, they were typically new. They typically didn't really know what was going on. They were afraid of making mistakes. And to see somebody in a position of at least facilitation authority saying, all right, here's how we're going to work together. Say, oops, I made a mistake. Let's try it again. That gives people confidence, and it allows people to relax. And then as a beginner with the beginner mindset, focusing on the process really allowed me to relax and enjoy the game every single time. And what that means is I'm able to go through the journey of reliving my first D&D or role-playing experience every time I teach new players. And every time I play with the group, I have that approach of, have you ever played before? And if they have, they can tell me kind of how far they've gotten up to, and I can start my journey with them again and bring them along to where I'm now at. Now, I try to phrase any type of context or advice I provide with kind of positive, like a positive approach. And I'll share in just a second some don'ts. For those of you that aren't familiar with what I do, my name is Adam Scott. I'm the head GM of RPG Club. We've designed a platform now. This all started because we were trying to get people to show up to game night and have really good positive experiences. I started it in a bar several years ago, and now it's this huge thing. We've run 17,000 sessions, and we've worked with hundreds of GMs and players. Actually, a lot of our players are GMs too, which I think is a really cool thing. So check out the link in the bio if you're interested in what we do. But the other thing I want to mention is, in terms of don'ts, when running a game, this, I see a lot of GMs get into trouble with this. Don't assume that everyone at the table knows a whole lot about how things work, or don't assume that players at the table, even if they're people you've played with for a while, have your specific body of knowledge. And I will share from personal experience that gets me into a lot of trouble, because there's a level of familiarity that I feel like I have with the content and the concepts I run that they almost become second nature to me. It's a world that I naturally live in because I'm so familiar with it. But it's very easy to forget that not everyone lives in that world. Whether it's an academic subject, whether it's, for you running your D&D or a role-playing game at home, you may live in that world, but the people at your table, they might not. So when we remove the preconceptions of, oh, you should have known that, or how could you not know that, and approach it with the mindset of, I'm so excited you're here. You're going to discover an awesome thing. I'm going to walk right alongside you, and I can't wait to discover it with you. Even if you have to play dumb some of the time, where you're like, oh yeah, I didn't realize it. That's great. But it's not about me. It's not about us as the hosts. It's about everyone having a positive time and learning and growing together and having a great experience. So I hope this has been helpful. If this has been helpful, please share it. Consider liking it. Consider subscribing, because we can share it with more people. My name is Adam Scott for RPG Club. I'll see you again soon.